Hey guys, welcome back to the Hear Me Roar pod. I am Tobi and my co-host is none other than the Kate Save, which you might know her from Shark Tank. She's also founder of BeFit Foods and picked up Telstra's Business of the Year award too. Kate?
Well, Toby, you've got a super impressive CV, 25 years in global commercialisation experience, and you founded Creative Cubes, Australia's leading co-working space and real estate business.
All right, let's get on with the pod. Guys, welcome back to the pod and welcome back to Australia. Skater.
Hey.
How are ya?
Had such a good time. Mind-blowing.
I saw photos. I saw videos. I saw stories.
So we
Take
went
me behind
to,
the scenes though.
Yeah, northern South Africa with Abundant Village with
Yeah.
Brianna Evergan, who filmed here late last year.
Yes.
And her husband being Damien Manders, who started the World Anti-Poaching Foundation that's now Akashinga. Brianna, Step It Up, movie star, Netflix series, and now has started this Abundant Village project, which is about building villages in communities and helping them, I guess, commercialise and survive. So we were building gardens, but not just any old gardens. We built medicinal gardens because they don't have access to proper medical things out there. We built a wellness centre, which is more or less a medical clinic for the whole community, not just the school, but it's a wellness centre because it's not going to be full of all of the resources you would see in a medical clinic.
Yeah.
We built a syntropic farm, which I did not know what that was until...
Tell me.
Well, we got hose and we hoed up a whole lot of land.
What?
And then we got shovels and we got string and we laid out where hundreds of trees and plants would go.
Okay.
And we planted everything from avocado, macadamia, mangoes, pawpaws, small ones, big ones, all these different things so that they all support each other and refertilise and put the nitrogen back in and all of that. So I learned so much stuff about agriculture that I had no idea. And one of the funnest moments was watching the interns that we hired, so local people from the community, build this soldier fly contraption. It's like a compost thing, and the soldier flies eat the waste and then they turn into maggots, and then there's a Coke bottle in there and they crawl up the Coke bottle out of this plastic tub into another tub where they're captured. And because we built a chicken coop, the chickens then get fed the maggots, and then it's a high protein diet, and the waste, once it's all consumed, turns into liquid, and then we collect it. And I had the prize job of getting this maggot juice and decanting it very carefully into the right consistency into the watering jugs, and we hand watered the maggot juice, fertilizer, across all of this entropic farm.
I noticed that there was a juice on the floor there. That's not maggot juice, is it?
No, that is my new vanilla collagen latte smoothie from BeFit.
Oh, BeFit. Yeah. I so much I want to talk to you about collagen because it's coming up all the time.
Well, we'll bring that one up next. So before we move on.
But just a quick question on the that sounds like an infinite loop, as in like it's a natural organic way for repetitive, so for sustainability perspective?
Yeah, so it's because we brought the interns in, the project that we started now will continue, so the whole community gets involved. So literally the kids, we donated lots of school supplies, so there was about 150 kids at the school, and now they're going to have food. They're going to taste the first egg they've ever had. So none of these kids in the school have ever had an egg before.
Wow.
So they're living in a very remote community where there's no running water. They do have electricity, some of them, but it was something like I'd never seen before. So 2 doors down's a kindergarten that had planted a garden, but they had no water, so the garden had died. And I said to the lady who ran the kindergarten, the principal, 65 kids, how are you going to feed the kids without the garden? She said, we'll never get the money it takes to replant the seeds because it would cost 500 Rand, which is about 50 Australian dollars to feed all of these kids.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, and she said they get donations once a week from a man who supplies the rice porridge that the infants basically live on. And there was some other really basic food. And we saw the same thing at the school. They have pap, which is made of, it looks like mashed potato, but it's made out of corn or corn maize flour. And they have baked beans basically, and that's it.
So have you got a link that enables us to make a donation?
Yeah.
And will that link, 100% of that money goes straight to those?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Abundant Village, if anyone wants to Google it, look at Brianna Evigan, the Step Up star. It's her foundation, and there's quite a few other people now involved. So there was 15 of us that flew in from all around the world, 10 from America, 5 from Australia, and literally we got our hands dirty.
I know, I saw.
Yeah, outdoor toilets. I had lizards in my toilet. Someone else had a monkey in their toilet. The monkey stole the toothpaste, so you couldn't leave your toothpaste in your outdoor toilet. We heard lions roaring all night, hippos growling or whatever noise they make all night.
Yeah.
So we were literally staying on the border of the savannah desert. So the animals are on our back door, and actually some were walking through. So I walked out and there was this great big it's not an antelope, but it's some sort of thing like that with great big horns. Yeah. And they said, just don't look it in the eye or it'll charge you.
Right.
And they said that just before dark, when they said, when you're walking back, just be careful because the leopards are in the trees, but if you don't stare them in the eye, you might be okay. And it literally had gone dark and I needed a jacket and I had to walk back to my room and I was too scared to look into the bush in case I looked a leopard in the eye.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, yeah. I'm glad you're back. I want to ask you, so firstly, we'll get that link and I'll put it in the show notes.
Yes.
So that anyone that's listening can make a $50 donation if you're able to. I think that'll go a long way. I want to ask you though, when you were walking through the African jungle,
yes,
there weren't like shop aisles like a shopping center, and there weren't music. It wasn't music playing, was there? Like
there were people singing and dancing, which was incredible in that culture. But one of the guys was such an incredible singer that Brianna's brother, who is like the head of Universal Music in America, signed him up. So I think some of those tunes could be played back here in Australia.
Well, I think that our next guest may have an interest in that. I was trying to get out. You didn't pick up what I was putting down. I was trying to say, was there melodies playing through?
Hakuna Matata.
There you go. So our next guest, actually, I've known Dean for a while, unbeknownst to you because you invited him on the show.
And he was I've got lots of stories, so we'll wait until he's on.
So coming up after the break, thanks to Rise Network, we have DJ Dean Cherny,
AKA Dirty Laundry.
Guys, I want to introduce you to Rise, a business cohort like no other.
So what is the Rise Network? Rise Network is a curated inner circle of 10 to 12 like-minded peers designed to provide a confidential, high-trust environment where business owners and leaders can gain strategic insights, actionable solutions, and lasting relationships. Rise isn't just networking, it's a game-changing business support system. It has strategic problem solving built in, expert facilitation, actionable insights, long-term impact and authentic relationships, and it's based exclusively around high-trust cohorts. For your membership, you gain full access to Creative Cubes. That means you can drop in when you're on the run to use the meeting rooms, breakout spaces, or even just dock in for the day. We wanted to serve the underserved, the people that do need the help, do need the support, don't necessarily have the funds to be able to do it, and don't necessarily fit into one of these other organizations. And so that's where Rise kind of came from.
So there you have it, guys. Go to werise.au, and I hope to see you at one of our cohorts soon.
Kate, Dean's in the studio.
He is.
Dean, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So there's lots to unpack here.
Yes, you told me a story. Please repeat your story about Dean.
So there's a rumor going around our community.
Yes.
It's not a wild rumor.
That's a shame.
But well, maybe it is.
Maybe a good thing.
Maybe it is. And I want to fact check it. So I want to set the record straight.
Sure.
Or alternatively, qualify the record.
Sure.
That your wife, Tanya,
Yes.
At her 13th birthday party.
Her 12th.
12th, sorry. She organised, or her family organised, for politician
David Southwick.
to DJ. Unfortunately, David wasn't available that night.
Yes.
So unfortunately, you were rolled in, or fortunately, you were rolled in. And how many years later, you guys are married with kids?
Yeah, it's not exactly that. It's a close thing. So David Southwick, who is the member for the Caulfield area in Victoria, he used to be a DJ. He used to specialise in doing kids functions. I used to DJ, and at one stage I did kids functions, and then I started detesting them. Essentially, you're just a glorified babysitter while the parents all left you in charge of 100 screaming kids. And they weren't as interconnected because there was no social media back then. And so Tanya wanted David Southwick, but he wasn't available on that weekend. So her mum went and booked me to DJ. And when when Tanya was informed of this, she said, "No, I'm not having that guy, Dean Cherny. There's no way."
I'll just marry him instead.
Who's he? So they actually moved the date of the function so they could have David Southwick DJ.
Oh, so you got benched.
I got benched.
Wow.
Which I was very happy with, because, as you can probably tell, there's a few years difference between my wife and I in our age. So it would have been very awkward at our wedding. There were enough awkward speeches at our wedding, some based on our age, that I didn't need that to be another story.
Mate, thank you for setting the record straight.
That's okay.
We'll short reel that and make sure that gets some virality to it. And then Kate, we share a calendar in as much as, hey, we're filming today. Who do you want to have on? And I get an email from you saying we're having DJ.
Well, I know Dean from EO. He was the president of EO, and he's been a member for way too many years. Is it a couple of decades?
No,
It's a long
Give
time.
the guy a
It's
break.
not a couple of decades. I didn't realise we were coming on to talk about my age.
Shots fired.
No, 14 years, I think it is.
Oh, that's
it's only 14
amazing.
years. Maybe we're coming up on 15 years.
But you are very highly regarded in EO. And
I love EO. It's been an amazing organisation for me. So I started my company about 36 years ago, and for the first 25 years of that, I was a solopreneur, which meant it was just me in the business. And it was lonely. And, I wish at that time I would have had a community around me, a business community that I could have learnt and grown through. And, I think it was, 2014. So it's actually only 12 years or 13 years. But I was introduced to EO, and then I joined. And for me, it was just like drinking from a fire hydrant. There was just so much to take in, amazing people. So within EO, the chapter now has about 200 members. It only used to have about 120 at the time. And then you have a chapter, and then you have a forum, which is about 8, and you meet monthly. And the whole idea of EO is to build the complete entrepreneur. So you talk about business, family, and personal. They're sort of like the 3 pillars. And the fourth one that's often thrown in is community. And so, you become very tight. We were actually in the same forum for quite a while. And just the learnings that I got out of that were incredible. That was where I learned about, right people in the right seat. They talk about that. I had never heard of that before. So, I went to every event. It gave me an opportunity to learn so much. And then it's a growth organisation. So I took the opportunity to join a board because I wanted to skill up in regard to that. And then very quickly the board recognised that they thought I'd be a good leader. So then they asked me to take on the role as chapter chair, which I did after 3 years. And, you only get 1 year at it because you have to roll off and give someone else the opportunity. So, I've loved it. It has taught me so much. I remain a member because the membership is not expensive, and I get the value out of it probably, 5 or 6-fold every year.
Your business has now gone global. You're an international business. So when you started, it was just Australian based?
Australia, New Zealand, essentially, yeah.
And then and tell us that transformation from your Music Melodies to storePlay, and that most of that happened during COVID.
You know, I started this company, like I said, 36 years ago, 1989. I was DJ Dean and I was studying marketing, and I combined the two for my final year assignment and created Marketing Melodies. And essentially it was an in-store music business. We had to present to a retailer, which we did. I presented to someone from Portman's. They loved it. They literally straight after the presentation said, "Do you want to do our music?" So I literally rolled out of university with my first client and only got a pass for the assignment. So shows what they know back
the
at...
cash in the bank was worth more.
Yeah. So that was sort of where it all began. I was mixing records onto cassette in my bedroom. Then from there, CDs sort of started in the early 90s. So when we started doing CDs. And then with the advent of iOS, we built the world's first app on the iOS platform for in-store music. So got all the licenses and everything from all the record labels to do that. And then we just sort of continued to grow. We then rolled into digital signage. We picked up the Just Group as one of our clients, and they wanted us to do all the digital signage in Smiggle. So I then had this thirst for sort of building technology, and everything was swimming along beautifully. And then COVID hit, and then I sort of say that was the day the music died. You know, we exclusively work on in-stores. So we essentially lost 80% of our revenue in a week.
I understand.
Thankfully, we had a couple of retailers that were considered essential services. We did David Jones. I was never quite understood why they were an essential service, but they were. We also did Optus and Telstra. So that sort of kept it going in. And by that point, I think even in 2019, I think I only had 2 employees. So it was still a very, very small company. And we managed to sort of push through that, but I sort of recognised that retail was going to change on the other side. So we built a queuing platform so you didn't have to deal with people breathing COVID down the back of your neck. And that was called Social Queue. So I essentially ended up with 3 different businesses. There was storePlay, which was in-store music, there was storePlay display, and then there was Social Queue. But they were completely sort of separate, even though they were targeting the same customers. And then what we did a couple of years ago, we sort of went and did a rebrand, repositioning kind of piece. And we sort of decided that we'd bring everything under the storePlay banner. So Marketing Melodies is the parent company. Consider that like Alphabet. And then you've got Google underneath. They're still a little bit bigger than us, but we're trying to mimic them.
It's very close.
And catch them. Just probably knock 4 or 5 zeros off and we'll be close. And so what we ended up by doing was we ended up by having storePlay radio, storePlay display. We turned Social Queue into storePlay IQ. And then we moved into scenting. So we have storePlay Scent. So we do fragrance in store. And then we wrapped all of that in a retail media kind of piece where we can do in-store advertising and all of those kind of things. And that's just really changed how the business is perceived. So we've literally just rolled out our single sign-on platform. So we're the only company in the world that actually allows you to control every part of your in-store environment from one retail operating system.
Fantastic. We should talk offline, because we're getting to a size now whereby we're running ads and people are approaching us to get their ads into our community. And I'm a bit of a gatekeeper because I want to make sure that there's integrity and the stuff that my members are being fed I can stand behind versus just taking an ad. But Sim, who you know, is looking after a division called Cubes Media. And so there might be something there for us to have a little dabble with. We're probably insignificant to the size of some of the clients that you've got, but we have a highly engaged audience. So I think there's some power there.
We love working with all businesses, especially businesses that are doing things quite differently and thinking differently, because that's how we think. Everything that we're trying to build is something that's quite unique and that what our customers want. And if there's a customer that comes to us and buys into what we're trying to do, then we want to work with them because that also gives us the opportunity to do case studies. And when you've got an engaged audience, we're going to probably be able to get some great data out of that too.
Yeah, totally.
So who was the client that when you took them on, you went, yes, we've made it?
So, look, we literally rolled the first store onto this new operating system, which we've just completed literally only a week ago.
Oh, wow.
And so
5 weeks in podcast land.
it took, so I'll be able to share more. I can't really share at the moment because this is a concept store for them to roll out, hopefully the whole chain of roughly 100 stores. But the conversations have just been really interesting. You know, there's the theory of the blue ocean strategy. So for those that don't know, you know, there's a red ocean that you can operate in, which is where all of your competitors are. And what really differentiates a brand is when they can create a blue ocean, which is something where no one else is. And we used to operate in that red ocean, you know, because we were doing music. So there's lots of in-store music companies. There's lots of digital signage players, you know, there's scenting companies and yada, yada, yada. Now that we've got a retail operating system, which is something that no one else can do, you know, we don't need to compete on each component of it. We compete on the full picture. And that's been really exciting. And as we talk to retailers who their ops teams are time poor and they don't have the time to log into 4 different systems to change all the different parts, and they can get a holistic view of their stores, it really is resonating with them, and we're really excited by the next
and is
12,
this
24.
only available in Australia and New Zealand?
No. We've got a few stores in the UK that are sort of interested in doing it.
Great.
So when we built Social Q, which is now IQ, one of the things that sort of strangely came out of that was we got asked to do the Australian Open and do the queuing at the Australian Open, and that led us to do Wimbledon.
Can you just define queuing?
So a virtual queue is, instead of waiting in line to be served, you can scan a QR code and then you can wander around the store freely, and when it's your time to be served, you just get a text message.
Amazing.
And we do all the click and collect bookings for Kmart. We do all the shoe fittings for the athlete's foot. So if you want to go in and get a shoe fitting, you know, back to school is pretty crazy with all the shoe retailers. So instead of, you know, mum having to wait there with 4 kids that are screaming and there's a 20-minute wait or half an hour wait, they just scan the QR code. They can go grab something to eat, go to another shop, and then they get a text message when it's there to be served.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So that, you know, when I built it, it was really about dealing with density limits in retail, because it was 1 person per 4 square meters. So they had about a quarter of the amount of people in store. And I just knew, and this has sort of always been my philosophy, is, you know, it's a bit of build it and then sort of work my way from there. Like, I was hoping that COVID wasn't going to last forever. But I knew that if I built a tech platform that had good values and worked well, that we could then, adapt it to make it work in other opportunities.
Do you think, Dean, COVID in hindsight, obviously going through it was hell on earth for everyone, but in hindsight, do you think it was the storm that came to kill you, as a storm that actually made you?
I don't really know if it was that. Like, I assumed that we'd always come out of it, and because we had a lean team, there was 3 of us in the business. We could make it happen. So I never felt like my business was on death's door. Like, it was a pretty challenging time, I think, for everybody. I don't think we were one of those businesses that sort of just, 20x'd out of it. Like, I don't think the business, got that growth and that growth spurt and picked up all of these things, because if anything, what happened was there was actually a diversion of funds in retail from being about in-store environment being into omni-channel, because the retailers had to adapt.
Yep.
And what I think is great is now that I think most of the retailers have probably optimized that online experience as best that they can. And now they're turning back to retail as to how can we create great experiences. You look at a brand like, Adore Beauty. They've always been online, but now they're opening retail July Luggage was originally online. Now they're rolling out stores.
LSKD.
Yeah, all of those, one of our customers.
Luxury Escapes.
And so I think what that means is there's a huge opportunity, and our new brand positioning is that we fight boring retail, and that's really what our mission is. We want to make those store environments as engaging as possible, so people want to come in, and that when someone goes into that store, they connect with the brand, which then makes them advocates and want to return into that store environment, which is still where about 70% of transactions take place.
And I think that's a big thing post-COVID now. We're all hungry for connection, and that connection really has to be face-to-face. Like, we can do Zoom meetings in between, but you're never going to get the same power from a connection through a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a superpower. I think if someone's actually going and taking the time to travel and meet someone, even travel interstate, like I'm doing it all the time now, because the meetings online are never the same as when you're actually sitting there, or if you go and have a coffee or break bread with someone. Yeah. It's a completely different experience.
It's the same as a podcast. So most podcasts are done online, and even the big ones are just screens and people connecting, and I'm sure they get valuable content, but you don't have that same richness that you have having people in the room. And
that's right.
And it's a very comfy couch.
I know, it's amazing. It's sense of and fashion. That's the bit we forgot. Dean has DJ'd over 150 fashion shows, including all of the big ones. So the Melbourne Fashion Festival, Sydney Fashion.
I heard him at the Byron Bay Hotel a couple of summers ago.
I've done a few Byron Bays.
Wow.
Yeah. So like when
Melbourne Cup?
when I did a bit, yes, I used to DJ for Maya at the Melbourne Cup. Like when I first started, Marketing Melodies, and I was a DJ, one of the things was that, how am I going to position myself in the market? And I sort of decided that one of the ways to do that, if I wanted to be working with fashion retailers, and I'd say our business probably, storePlay does more fashion retail than any other provider in the country. So we're probably the number one player when it comes to music there. And a lot of that was based around, I could DJ, I could go and do these events where I was working with the top brands and doing the best brands fashion shows and the musical director of these events. And then that just added to, the kudos that had. Yeah. So when I then went and spoke to another retailer and so sort of, what's your CV? Well, I was just the fashion, the music director at Sydney Fashion Week or for Melbourne Fashion Festival or something of the like there. And
was
every
that called
brand
Dirty
is
Laundry?
aspirational.
Yeah. When you were, that was called Dirty Laundry? I was thinking
so
Melbourne Fashion
Dirty
Week,
Laundry
Dirty
sort of
Laundry.
came.
I don't know.
Dirty Laundry sort of came later. That was a band I started with Cherny, who you might know from the song Flaunt It back in the day. And
know that.
Another mate of mine, JJ Styles. And it was essentially two DJs, MC, and then we added a female vocalist and sax and percussion. And
I think I went to one of your gigs maybe on Ackland Street back in the day.
Yeah. We used to play on Ackland Street at Voluto Friday nights.
That's right. Yeah,
we did a couple of years there.
I'm playing Flaunt It in my head at the moment. What a cool track.
Big track.
Yeah.
This is amazing. So what's the – I'm going to put all of the links in the show description below, but how do people get a hold of you?
storeplay.com.au is probably the easiest way. Dean at storeplay is my email. If you need to reach out directly, I'm open to everything.
Interesting. We didn't have time to double click on the email situation, but Dean only checks his email once or twice a day.
Yeah, 11 and 3 is generally when I.
So if you email Dean and you get an out of office from him, it's like, hey, I'm not checking my emails before, after 11 and before 3.
I check them at 11 and at 3.
Oof. It's going to be hard to catch Dean on email.
It's not hard to catch me at all. The thing about email is people respond about 20 times quicker than people expect them to respond.
Yeah.
And if all you do is spend your day just in your inbox, answering emails, you get a little dopamine hit, which is great.
So I feel the opposite, right? With the utmost respect, I'm sitting here going, I know things are okay, everything's running fine, but like during the breaks, I'm like, how many emails am I going to have to respond to? And it doesn't give me a dopamine hit. It actually makes me anxious. Not clinically, but just the door. I check out on a Friday night until Monday morning. I won't be on email. I won't even actually be on my phone. But come Sunday night, I'm starting to feel a little bit, oh God, what's in the inbox? What have I got to deal with tomorrow? Starting to feel that way.
The expectation setting's good though, because I think when I get the bounce back from Dean, I'm like, he's told me he's going to look at it, but not right now. He's got other things on.
And my number's on the email. It's like, if you need me, just text me and I can get back to you. But it allows me then, I spend an hour each day, before that second one, so 2 till 3. It's like my deep work. So I just spend time there. No one's allowed to disturb me. No one's allowed to put anything in my diary. And I just spend that time thinking about the business, what we're doing, strategy, sales, positioning, all of those kind of things. What are the things that we should be doing to sort of drive the business forward? And I think so many, people get caught up in the urgent. They don't work on the important.
Yep.
And so I try to every day give myself that opportunity to work on what's important, because that's ultimately going to drive what happens in the business and the business's growth. Like, most of those emails that come through are very rarely anything that's actually going to help my business grow. Any of our big sales opportunities are going to go to my sales team and things like that. Sometimes this is just ticking off stuff and doing things like that. So, I got a response from someone actually, the other day that I think was like 4 weeks, since I'd emailed them, and they just got back to me and said, hey, I've been busy and this. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, people are generally fine with it, unless it's something you really, really need, like right there and then. And anyone can contact me on my mobile. So look, it works well for me. Most people, not most people, everyone I know that I've spoken to about it thinks it's awesome. I had one person that wrote back and said, well, I'm not going to do business with you.
Seriously.
You don't care enough, and I'm
so
like.
The takeaway for me is you're working on the business, not in the business, and you're dealing with the big rocks versus the sand and the water.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's really important. I think there's a lot of business listeners out there on our pod that will really value it. I think like setting a strategy is one thing, and actually sticking to it is another.
Yeah.
But actually, more importantly, what I'm hearing is like the emails is almost like the rats and mice, and like you'll deal with that rough, right, as you need to. But actually the big boulders that you're trying to push up the hill is where your energy and focus is.
Absolutely.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Me too.
And
So
the guy that wrote
complained.
back to me, he self-selected out, and that was perfect, because he's probably not a customer that we want.
That's fine.
So
I get it.
win-win for everybody. I didn't even need to go through that.
Guys, we're going to come back after the break. There's lots to unpack here, but first, a word from Luna. Thanks, Dean.
weareluna.co is a great place for you and your business to start off with phenomenal accounting and legal services. So if you're a startup or a scale-up looking for legal and finance support, or alternatively looking to raise capital, weareluna.co is where you need to be starting off.
Kate, that was awesome.
It was deep work with Dean, 2 till
work
3.
with Dean.
I love that,
do
working
too.
on the business, not in the business, and that creative thinking. Although my brain goes, am I most creative at 2 till 3 p.m. or am I thinking about school pickup or something else? My creative brain is probably earlier in the day.
My
I
creative
think.
brain's 2 to 3
Is it?
a.m.
Oh, right. Yeah. I was going to say, that mid-arvo for me.
No, I'm
I'm
fried.
not sure if that's my
No.
best.
I actually get home and I have like an hour and a half with the kids.
Yeah.
And then they go and do their thing and get dressed and all, get ready for bed and all the rest of it. And there's times where like, guys, I just need my time right now because I'm
Yes.
just burnt.
Yes.
But I've actually developed a really bad habit, waking up at like 2 to 3 a.m.
Really?
Yeah. And I can't shake it at the moment.
That's interesting. So what I think about Dean's 2 till 3 p.m. is probably nothing urgent is happening there. So maybe that is a good time
Yeah.
because maybe, school pickup hasn't started. Things that you were urgent, you got done, meetings. People are not going to be critical about a 2 o'clock meeting. I feel like there's
Well,
other times
I think
of the
like
day.
if you look at your calendar,
Yeah.
a lot of the heavy stuff that I'm doing specifically happens in the mornings.
Yes.
And almost done before 1 o'clock.
Absolutely.
And then 1 o'clock in the afternoon to sort of 5 or 6 is important stuff. But to Dean's call out, it's in the business, not on the business.
Yeah.
And the stuff in the morning for me is on the business, not in the business. But actually beyond that, what an awesome entrepreneur.
I know. Wow.
And to be able to like be doing what he's doing for the extended period of time that he's done it. I think he said 30 odd years.
I know.
Which is phenomenal. He's clearly wildly passionate about his music as a former DJ.
Apparently his house is some designer house that him and Tanya have created. So like the music is a part of the space in the house.
No doubt.
And he has a Lego soundtrack.
No doubt.
When they build Lego, there's a track for that.
No doubt.
Yeah.
He is phenomenal. We will put all of Dean's details minus his email address in the show notes so that if you want to reach out and learn more about your retail experience for those retailers listening, or even for those people, in the office that want to create, like maybe someone in HR wants to create an experience for their staff in order to earn their commute back to the office, maybe storePlay is, or Music Melodies is a play for you guys. So, Dean?
Is it Marketing
Cherny.
Melodies?
Marketing
I feel
Melodies,
like I
yes.
called it the wrong thing. But
No, it is Marketing Melodies.
There
I
we
think
go.
I think I slipped up there. Kate, another awesome episode. Thanks for bringing Dean on the show.
Pleasure.
See you next one.